Thanks. I'll give it a shot first. The MCC is looking very aggressively to partner and to coordinate our activities with members at large in the donor community, whether they be the mega philanthropists, the Gates, Buffetts, Rockefellers, Carnegies, et cetera, of the world, or our activities with the NGO community, not only in the United States, but outside of the United States, as well as with other governments. Some of you may have noticed that the new Minister of Development of the Sarkozy government has adopted certain MCC guidelines for some, or are going to consider certain MCC conditionality topics for their development assistance. 2 weeks ago, the new Minister of Development in Gordon Brown's government, Douglas Alexander, was here in Washington, and we had a very robust conversation as to areas in which the MCC and DFID in the UK can cooperate in countries where we are both operating. We seek to build not only with other governments, but also with the World Bank, the IFC, IDB, other international organizations, complementary programs where we are operating in the same countries. This is something which we have looked at very dynamically in the last year and which is now beginning to happen. For example, last week we had a group that pursued conversations that were initially started some months ago with the Rockefeller Foundation and the new program they have, the AGRA program that Kofi Annan is the chairman of for the Green Revolution in Africa. A number of our countries are in Western Africa, Benin, Ghana, Mali, Burkina, and we very much hope and are on the verge of doing something that will really provide a greater form of momentum in these particular areas for all of our joint efforts with regards to the reduction of poverty. I also, although initially skeptical of the Hollywood influence on aid, there are certain players, I think, who are enormously significant and who have made a tremendous difference, I think, to all of us. Specifically, I would cite Bono as being a very significant and important player in the international area of development assistance. And with that being said, I simply want to make it clear that the MCC is very much looking to cooperate and to partner with the NGO community at large, other philanthropic organizations, to the greatest extent that we possibly can to maximize our efforts and their efforts in the countries where we're seeking to make a difference.
If I could jump in, because then I'm going to have to jump out of here and get to an airplane to go up to meet with some of our partners, actually. I think the way you ask the question with those two pieces is right, because there are two components to it. There's kind of the congressional activism, advocacy, and then there's the implementation. And you know, what you said, I think, is true. There's so much energy and excitement around these areas right now. But I'm afraid we can't rest on our laurels, which is why I'm so excited about groups like this. And I actually met with a group of the youth who have gone out of their way, you know, in college to start their own programs as college. There's so much wonderful stuff. James and Kirk and a couple others sitting over there met with yesterday. I mean, it's really exciting stuff, but we've got to keep pushing it. In the AIDS community, there's actually this faulty assumption that there's just an unending support for HIV/AIDS. It's total nonsense. I mean, we've seen these fads in development many times before, and we've got to stay energized. We've got to collect the data. We've got to present our results. We've got to all stay engaged because it can go awfully fast. So what you all are doing is critical. Now, you talked about who has leads and what. We're perfectly happy to hand that lead off to the people in this room because we're prohibited from lobbying, for one thing. We'll provide information, but that's not our role, and I can't even encourage you to do it. Especially with our friends from the Senate sitting over here. So, it is a very important, but it's also an exciting thing. And we have a window right now of interest, as you point out, that we haven't had before. We've got to take advantage of it while that window's open and have success and show to the American people that their tax dollars change lives. You know, the American people are so compassionate and generous, but they also want to know their tax dollars are going for a purpose. And we've all got to work together to ensure that they have the information they need to understand. And then I have no doubt that people will want to contribute because that's our nature. Now, in terms of implementation, as with the MCC and with USAID, we are all over in terms of partnerships. We implement through agencies, but the agencies implement through partners. And many of you in this room are actually among those partners. 80% of our partners are non-governmental organizations. And actually, 80% of them are also local organizations. One of the nice things about the energy around development is it's happening in Africa, too. It's extraordinary. And this, I think, is one of the legacies of PEPFAR and MCC. There's a sense of hope that there's always been an understanding of problems, but now there's a sense of hope that they can own and control their epidemics and do something about it or develop themselves. And we have that window too, that sense of we can do something here. And all of the partners, the US-based and international partners, need to build and strengthen that capacity and that hope. And I think that's being created as well. So the NGOs are a critical part of what we do, both NGOs here and abroad, and we give the lead in terms of implementation to those agencies because they're on the ground doing the work, whether they're local or US-based. Foundations have been critical, and we work very closely with the Gates Foundation. We're actually working in partnership on a number of important areas, including co-funding of activities. So we've reached out to, and they have reached out to us to have these important partnerships, because we all know in the end, as John said, we're all there to support the country strategy. We're all there to support country-owned and led programs to build that local capacity. And so we've all got to work together to do it. And the Gates Foundation sees that, and we do too. The private sector is critical. And this is a left-out piece as far as I'm concerned in terms of drawing on the expertise and experience. You talked about systems. The U.S. government's not particularly good at building, communication systems, logistics systems, management systems, financial systems, human resource systems. We're not good at that. The private sector is incredibly good at that. They live or die on it, and we need to tap into that. They're also great at branding and getting kids to change behavior. We need to tap into that. And so I'm actually going to New York about an exciting public-private partnership to bring modern technology and the corporate world together with the academic and NGO world to try to reduce prevalence among 10 to 24-year-olds in Nairobi by 50% over 5 years, using modern technology, using the innovative approaches that business has. And we have multiple public-private partnerships. So we've leveraged about 60 million with 13 million investment from the U.S. government, including clean water and other programs. So we need the private sector. Other bilaterals, as the MCC, we work very closely with other bilaterals, and we can't forget the multilaterals. We're the largest supporter of the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria by far. We're heavily engaged at the secretarial and administrative level. The multilaterals are important too. We support WHO and UNAIDS where appropriate. We don't care who leads. We think the people who have the most talent and expertise ought to lead, and we'll be there to support. And we all need to do it together to have those country-owned strategies, because if the countries don't own them, they're not going to succeed. So that's our approach, and I think it's a critical issue. And I just wanted to thank you all again for what you do. It is so important. And I just want to open up our office, as Henrietta did. We're here to talk to partners, whoever they are. Please give us your thoughts and ideas, and let us know what we can do to improve what we're doing, because in the end, it's your money. So I've got to run to catch a plane. But thank you all very much.
If we could just package Mark's enthusiasm and have everybody in the world spend 15 minutes with him, I think we'd all be out of business here very shortly. Well, it goes without saying, I'll try to be brief, that we appreciate the partnership we have with virtually everybody in this room, and Mark's absolutely right. We're not in the business of doing so many things ourselves as of working with you, and obviously we wouldn't be here today with this colloquium if it weren't for the generosity of the Gates Foundation, so we appreciate this kind of partnership. I'd just like to raise a sort of structural issue about this. I think in general, the whole arena of subnational, transnational interactions is something we've got to pay attention to. And we still, to some extent, our governmental structures are organized as though the world consisted primarily of bilateral government-to-government transactions, when, of course, at the subnational level, whether it's EPAs to EPAs, and AIDS coordinators to AIDS coordinators, or people to people, or NGOs to NGOs. We've got a vast and much more complex panoply of interactions that have developmental impact than we've ever had before. And I don't believe our governmental structures have kept up with that. We've tried at USAID, as all of you know, we have an Office of Private and Voluntary Coordination, has about 5 people in it.